Hello, welcome back to another Pen Talk. Thank you very much for joining me as I explore the amazing, incredible, interesting wide world of pens. And yes, I got a new pen from Asvine today. So, Asvine writing instruments, pretty generic. You can tell what the pen is. Bought it on Amazon. We're going to do a quick unboxing, nothing spectacular about the boxing. But for those who may not be aware, so the first impressions of this pen is a large pen. Give you some dimensions. My first impression is I'm not a fan of the design and the look. Rounded end, big flat top, nothing special there, just the machined stabilized wood. The look of the pen is okay. I wouldn't say it's great. It's a little bit more subtle than some of the other stabilized woods out there. I'm not necessarily a fan of that gold coloring in the identification. It's not bad. The clip looks small in relationship to the cap. It's a standard size clip. You would think it'd be down a few more millimeters, but that's the way it is. The cap comes off in a little over 1.5 turns, and we see that number 8 nib. Everything is nice and smooth. That semi-gloss finish is just good in the hand. And as we would expect with a large pen, it fits extremely well in the hand unposted. And yes, you can put the cap there, and yes, it makes for a very long pen, and you do feel that back weight. Here are the weights. I'm not a poster, and this is not a pen I would post for a number of reasons. One of the reasons is that the end of this cap has no cap band. Generally, stabilized wood, you would expect it to have a cap band. I mean, they put this little metal ring here at the base of the section. There's that plastic liner in there, which should help out. But we've noticed another wooden pen, not stabilized wood, but wooden pen where that plastic liner didn't stop it from cracking. Time will tell on this model, and we will see. So as expected, and one pen reviewer says, oh, it's a C, so it's a cartridge converter. No, I don't know why they use the C, because they have other cartridge converters that they don't have the C for it. So that comes out, nice branded converter there. Nothing special about the converter, fits very nicely. And of course I like that metal band at the end, that little insert to give you a nice secure seating when you put it in place. I mean, it's just a basically well-made pen, nothing spectacular, nothing out of the ordinary. And price-wise, I think it's very well priced for a very large pen with a number 8 nib, the first for Asvine. So I've done my usual deconstruction of the pen, just to look at the different bits and pieces. And we will go into detail on these number 8 nibs. I have an interesting comparison to show you. Just a nice converter, has all the nice bits. 2 nice O-rings on that nib assembly, which I really appreciate and thinks work well. And here's an O-ring here in this section. And there's a metal band at the bottom, which I think will help stabilize this stabilized wood. We're going to show you something that happened on another stabilized wood pen that is a little disappointing. You know, metal on metal threads here, that works well. So let's take a look inside the cap, see what we can see. Yes, this is what the pen looks like in darker light. Nothing too particular about it. There seems to be a little bit of pearlescence in that stabilized wood. Not something I expected. But if you look inside, we'll see the standard plastic liner. So you have those plastic threads. And at the very top, it just looks like it's pressed together to hold in that top finial that holds in the clip. Standard design, nothing out of the ordinary, and there's a nice little ledge to seal up against the section. So the pen we're going to compare the Asvine to is the Hongdian A7. Both stabilized wood, blue, green. From what I understand, the A7 is a very difficult pen to find now. But one of the first things that's interesting is the clip on this smaller pen is longer than the clip on the Asvine. Yeah, a couple people have talked about how short that clip looks. But the stabilized wood in both of them is an interesting material. Certainly, it's an interesting shape, texture, design, flow, somewhat based on dyeing of a piece of wood. But I have a sad news for you. The viewer noticed that the section on the A7 has a crack, and there it is. There's the crack. Hopefully it's coming across on the camera. The other thing about this section is it's loose now. I'm not happy with that, but I'm going to use some glue, secure the section, and also fill in that crack. But it is wood, it is a natural material, and regardless of what they may have done to stabilize it, it still can have issues. So I've assembled some nibs here to us to look at. So we have the Asvine number 8 nib here, and here's a Hongdian number 8, and much to my amazement, these are two different nib assemblies. They're not interchangeable. So there is a lot of discussion of the relationship between Asvine and Hongdian. Obviously, they did not collaborate on the number 8 nib. And for reference, here is a Jinhao number 8 nib, which has also been ground to a stub. It's going to be in my next upcoming review of the black 9019 that I recently got. Here's some number 6 nibs just to put things in perspective. And here is a Jinhao number 8 nib that I extracted from a nib assembly, just to show you how big that nib is. And they have these cutouts at the end, which seem to be common with the bigger nibs. On AliExpress is a nice chart that a lot of the sellers have been adding, because there's now a number 9 nib. It mostly seems to be in a gold nib, and it's very expensive, but the Chinese generally size their nib based on the length of the nib, not the diameter of the feed. So the 5, 6, 8, 9, 10 or whatever is based on the diameter of the feed in the Western sizing area. And on the Eastern sizing area, it's based on the length. It's interesting how they've looked at defining and putting an ID indicating the size of the nib. Let's take a close-up look at these stub nibs. Number 8 stub nibs was one ground by Bobby, and this one I got with my Asvine C2000. The Asvine nib is definitely longer as far as its relationship to the end of that nib collar. Most of that probably has to do with how much the nib has been inserted into the collar based on the feed. And if we look at the feeds on the other side, well, this is, both of these are functional and working. They have a lot of fins. The other thing I find interesting is the kind of simplistic stamping on the Asvine number 8. You'd think they would be a little bit more elaborate. Hongdian has just kept a usual design, nib design stamping when they went from their 6 to their 8. And if we look at feeds, again, different feeds. Hopefully they work the same. What ink to put in it? Well, I like to put new inks into a new pen. So we're going to do Birmingham Pen Company Lightning Twinkle, which I have in this sample vial. It looks like some blue glitter in it, so that should be interesting. Here it is on Toma River paper. I don't know, my eyes might see a little bit of green in there, but, that's the ink we're using. So this is the first writing I did with the Asvine C2000 right after I filled it. I didn't fill it from the sample bottle. I used a syringe to extract ink and fill the cartridge. I had to fill the cartridge twice because a lot of ink is needed to prime that big feed in that number 8 nib. But as you can see right away, the first time I touched the nib to paper, it was a wow experience. Wet, soft, smooth. To me, all the attributes of a great nib, which it is. I think this says it all. I'm amazed at this nib. If this was the only pen I had new in 2025, I would be very happy. Unbelievably wet. It's soft. It opens up a little bit without much pressure, but it's just so smooth it glides. Not that sensitive to angle, which some stubs can be. I just love it. And this Lightning Twinkle ink does have a fair bit of glitter in it, like we saw with Galactic Twinkle. I think Birmingham Pen Company's done a good job with their glitter inks. Well, I think we need to do a quick comparison of the Stub nib Asvine C2000 to this incredible vintage Waterman's nib that's stubby and soft. So this nib is definitely softer, but it's also sharper. And there's a much greater variation between horizontal and vertical. And the vertical you can really open up and make wider by a little bit of pressure. So again, the Asvine C2000 is certainly not a vintage Stub flexi nib, but it is a very nice nib. And for modern nib, it's in the top 5. Well, in summary, I have to say that I'm very impressed with what Asvine has done for their first number 8 nib pen. Like I say, I'm not necessarily a fan of the aesthetics, but it writes phenomenally well, this 1.1 millimeter stub. I watched a few reviews. I don't know whether anybody really raved about the nib, but I'm raving about the nib. This is great. It's softer than my other number 8s from China, and it's smoother. It feels great. I mean, that's the whole joy of having a fountain pen and putting that nib down and just saying, wow. And this pen is a wow pen. So with that, hopefully you can find one. Who knows? These things seem to come and go pretty quickly. My thought is that the material, the stabilized wood material, is a very limited supply. And I have a feeling that maybe through the machining process or whatever, there may be a high reject rate, a high loss rate. So get them while you can. Enjoy them when you get them. So with that, we reached the end of this video. I hope it found everyone safe, healthy, and happy. Enjoying your pens, enjoying everything. That's what life is all about. So with that, thank you all for watching. Bye.